in the squadron. They called him Bullets, but we call him Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is on the air on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Yeah, there was a time when your color didn't matter. Now it's everything. Not for me, not for you, not for a lot of people I know, no matter what their color is. You know, some of the great superstars in the conservative movement happen to be, younger people of color. It's not a thing, but if you look at it, if you want to think about it, yeah, it's kind of a thing. It's their ideas that are interesting. Their ideas and their eloquence and their charisma and their commitment and all these other things that are so much more valuable and interesting than what the hell color you are. And look, I basically avoid Van Jones, right? Van Jones, you heard of Van Jones? Because he's very good at saying something. He plays the right a little bit because he's like the liberal who occasionally says something that appeals, like, well, Trump is right on this one, and he'll defend Trump for like 10 seconds, but then he's back to the races and saying all kinds of extraordinary things. This, though, is a trend. This whole thing that you cannot criticize Kamala about certain things. And if you mispronounce her name, as apparently I do all the time, but, I checked it out, and the way I say it, Kamala, seems to be totally fine. I went back to see when she was sworn in as Vice President of the United States. And guess what the justice called her? Sotomayor, she swears her in. Please raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Kamala Harris. Says it the same way I do. So if the justice of the Supreme Court gets it like that, let's face it, I've never heard the name before. This is the only Kamala we know. And she hasn't exactly, I'm pretty good friends actually these days with, Kari Lake. She spells her name Kari, Kari. But a lot of people call her Carrie. Apparently it is Carrie. But people still call her Kari because it's spelled Kari. Whatever. I asked her about it once, and she told me, and I still can't figure out which way to say it. And I consider her a good friend. I like her. I talk to her. I like her. I guess I could ask again. I'm still going to forget. I know that they've made it such a thing how to say her name. I don't know how to say her name. So are we just going to call her Harris? No, I'm going to call her Kamala. Actually, Kumala. Kumala. C-O-U-P, Kumala. Or phonetically, Koomala. Emphasis on the mala. Kumala. Who cares? She's crazy. And she was the most liberal United States senator. She's one of these people who think that pornography should be allowed in middle school libraries. You know that whole thing they try to say we're banning books, right? Banning books. No, it's called age appropriate material. And that's been a standard basically since, you set up the civilization. We always kind of understood that until 10 minutes ago. All right. So here's Van Jones saying, if you mess with Kumala, you're messing with 20,000 black men who are on some silly conference call he was on. Listen to this.
Start insulting black women, you're going to see something you haven't seen before. Black men are not going to put up with that. I was on a phone call with 20,000 black men. The word protect came up about 1,000 times. Protect this sister. Protect this sister. We're going to protect her. Protect her. You're about to see something you haven't seen before. Look, people messed around with Hillary Clinton and said a bunch of mean stuff to her. Black men set that out. We won't set this out. So I don't think that the Republican Party understands that all the work that they did trying to get us over there, two more days of this, it's going to be a problem.
What's he getting at? First of all, 20,000 people on a conference call. How does that work? You put Madison Square Garden on a conference call. How does that work? I guess you got a great big mute button and one guy's talking at 20,000. That's not really a conference call. That's like I don't know what it is, but it's not a conference call. Conference, you confer, people talk, right? 20,000 people. But he made sure that on this phone call, 20,000 black men, and who the hell says sister anymore, quite frankly? Protect this. That's right out of 1975. I don't think people say that anymore. Sister, brother. Is that a thing? Is it? I don't think so. Maybe it is. You know what's a thing? Bro. You don't want to be a bro. You don't want to be a finance bro. You don't want to be You don't want to be a bro. A bro is a negative these days. It's right up there with Karen. Screw it. Screw it all. I don't care. Can we go back to the Trump, because he makes a couple of interesting points here about the attempted assassination that we got to hear. Go ahead.
Their prison population is becoming much smaller. I'm surprised they haven't just moved all of them. They will. They'll soon have no prisoners. All of the prisoners are being moved into the United States, and that's true with many other countries. It's true with countries all over. The Congo in Africa is releasing their prisoners into the United States.
So, Mr. President,
and we are so stupid that we take them, and nothing good is going to happen. And we have terrorists coming in at a level that we've never seen, mostly from the Middle East. Terrorists are coming into our country at a level that we've never seen before. And this is so bad for our country. There is nothing good about it. This is so bad for our country.
And there we were looking at some of the video from the new caravan that is heading our way. Mr. President, you know, it was just about a week ago that you selected J.D. Vance to be your running mate. Now we know that at that point you didn't know that Kamala Harris was going to be your main opponent, but now she is. And I'm sure you've seen there have been a couple of stories out that say they wonder whether or not you feel you made the right pick, given the fact you didn't realize you were going to be running against a woman who might now try to pick a running mate to deliver a key state or a demographic or anything like that. You're still 100% behind J.D. Vance, right?
He's fantastic. Yeah, no, it wouldn't have mattered. And I thought she was probably going to happen anyway, because I knew there was a palace coup going on, and I assumed that she'd be probably getting it. She had the advantage. So, no, it wouldn't matter. No, he's doing a fantastic job. He goes around. He's essentially for the worker. He's seen the worker be horribly abused and taken advantage of, and he's for the worker. That's what his book is about. Right. That's where his feelings are.
Gotcha.
No, he's for the worker. No, he's great. He's doing a great job, and he's been very well received.
Well, Kamala Harris has given two speeches now that she's the candidate, and they're almost identical speeches. This is what she's doing. She's going after you this way. Watch.
Before I was elected vice president, before I was elected United States senator, I was elected attorney general of the state of California, and I was a courtroom prosecutor before then. I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type. And in this campaign, I promise you, I will proudly put my record against his any day of the week.
There's the attack. What's the retort?
Well, I think it's disgusting, and I get a kick out of one thing. They say, sir, be nice. You just got hit with a bullet. Maybe he's changed. Be nice. And I'd love to be nice, but I'm dealing against real garbage. When you hear that, they've weaponized the justice system against me. They've indicted me 4 times. They've pushed other lawsuits onto me. It's never happened in this country. This is like a third world country, what they've done, a banana republic. Every single court case that I have is pushed on by them. They've taken the Justice Department, used local DAs, and used local attorney generals. Every single case I have, and I just won the big one in Florida, that Biden didn't win. What happened to Biden is they called him incompetent. He can run for president, but he's incompetent to represent himself in court. But just so you know, they push all these cases on me. They're the ones that started. And then they say, I'm a prosecutor. He's a criminal. They're the ones. Every case is started by them. And I'm winning the cases, but every case, and the big one I just won in Florida was just thrown out by a brilliant judge, to be honest with you.
Eileen Cannon.
And it's disgraceful. It's disgraceful that they can do this. It's called weaponization, and it does happen in other countries.
So, Mr. President,
but does it get under your skin?
It's never happened in this country before.
Does that get under your skin when those comments are made? Because that's what they're meant to do.
It's not a question of getting under your skin. You fight back. I fought back, I think, very valiantly. But they weaponized the United States Justice Department against Donald Trump for purposes of hurting their political opponent. And so far, and I think long term, it's had a positive effect. My poll numbers are high. They're higher than they've ever been. People don't like what they're doing. They weaponize it to go after a political opponent. Now, and she was very much in charge, and she was a prosecutor, but she was a failed prosecutor. She put a lot of people in jail that should have never been there. She put people in jail that were political enemies. She's bad news. She's a radical left, not very smart person.
Mr. President,
she failed her bar exam. She couldn't even pass her bar exam. It was brutal on her. She couldn't pass it. She thought she'd never be able to pass it. This is what we have as our next president?
So speaking of radical, Mr. President, we've been watching these protests, and while the Prime Minister of Israel was giving a great speech yesterday, you had protesters burning the American flag. They were screaming Allah Akbar. They had the Palestinian flag. They took the American flag down. They were writing Hamas on the bell outside of Union Station. What does a Donald Trump do if he takes office to these people on the street?
Rarely have we seen anything like this, and I think you should get a 1-year jail sentence if you do anything to desecrate the American flag. Now, people will say, oh, it's unconstitutional. Those are stupid people. Those are stupid people that say that. We have to work in Congress to get a 1-year jail sentence when they're allowed to stomp on the flag and put lighter fluid on the flag and set it afire. And when you're allowed to do that, you get a 1-year jail sentence and you'll never see it again. And all over the world, Putin and President Xi of China, all over the world, they're watching this. Kim Jong-un, he looks at us like we're a bunch of babies. They see that. That wouldn't happen in their countries. It's impossible for that to happen in their country. Where we look so bad to the world. That was a disgraceful display yesterday.
The Prime Minister had a beautiful speech. It was wonderful, and he introduced some of the hostages that we've all been praying for. They were standing up. He introduced us to some of the IDF soldiers who had lost limbs and talked about how radical Iran is and what's happening in Gaza. I know you're meeting with him tomorrow after Kamala Harris snubbed him and didn't go to the speech. What is your plan if you become president to end the war in Gaza?
Well, first of all, it was very nice to me yesterday. He mentioned me in the speech very nicely, and I appreciated that. He's coming to see me. I want him to finish up and get it done quickly. You got to get it done quickly because they are getting decimated with this publicity. And, you know, Israel is not very good at public relations, I'll tell you that. Israel, for whatever reason, you have Jewish people out there wearing yarmulkes, and they're, you know, pro-Palestine. You've never seen anything. People have never seen anything like this. Israel has to handle their public relations. Their public relations are not good, and they've got to get this done fast because the world is not taking lightly to it. It's really incredible. You know, October 7th would have never happened if I was president. There was no chance. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah. It just wouldn't have happened. Zero chance. By the way, Ukraine, the attack by Russia would have never happened.
But, Mr. President, they're soul-walking weapons to Israel now, and they're deciding what weapons Israel should be using. Would you change that policy?
I'd make sure that it gets over with fast. You have to end this fast. It can't continue to go on like this. It's too long. It's too much. You got to get your hostages back. I think they're going to have a lot of bad news with the hostages. I think some of those hostages, many of them maybe are dead. Yeah. I believe they're dead. I watched them as they took the hostages in disbelief. Again, it would have never happened if I was president. I watched them as they took the hostages. The level of violence and viciousness, the way they pulled that young girl into a car by her hair and threw her like a sack of potatoes. And I don't believe that they're really capable of taking care of all these hostages. And I think you're going to find that one of the reasons that Hamas is not really negotiating very nicely, I think they're saying, wow, they want the hostages back, and we've killed the hostages. I think. Oh,
my God. Hey, listen, you know, the interesting thing is he speaks so responsibly. What do you mean by that? He sounds so, you know, whatever. No, he's not. He's speaking as a future president. And Brian asked him, you know, hey, are you going to just change that and make sure they have all the weapons? Well, there are ramifications to that. The easy thing, the automatic thing to say, yeah, of course. Yeah. But that actually moves the needle. He's being very, very smart and responsible because very soon he could be in that position and emphasizing that he wants it done, finished, stop the dying. All right, when we come back, I want to get to the part about the Secret Service because there's more on the Secret Service there that he talks about. Very, very insightful. And looks like everybody at the White House now is sending their resume all over the place. They know this ship is sinking. They know they won't have jobs in just a few months. So especially that game showy press secretary, not Karine, the other guy who wears the suits from 1965. He's now making a spectacle out of himself on Instagram, doing walk and talks in the Rose Garden, almost like he's the president. Very, very obnoxious. Be right back.
Greg Kelly on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Are you ready to launch your career to new heights? Visit careers.dish.com/technician now and uncover a world of exciting opportunities waiting just for you. From cutting-edge technology to a supportive work environment, Dish has everything you need to thrive. Don't wait any longer to kickstart your next opportunity. Apply today and join the Dish family where innovation meets opportunity. Visit us online at careers.dish.com/technician. Your future starts now.
Drive into summer with the Honda CR-V and Accord, your fun-to-drive weekend getaway vehicles. From Honda, the 2024 Kelley Blue Book's KBB.com Best Value brand. So hurry in to the Honda Summer Event. For a limited time, well-qualified buyers can get a 2.9% APR on a 2025 CR-V or 2024 Accord.
See dealer for financing details based on 2024 Consumer Choice Awards from Kelley Blue Book. Visit KBB.com for more information.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So these protesters burn American flags even on the 4th of July. And I wish to salute the fraternity brothers at the University of North Carolina who protected the American flag against these anti-Israel protesters.
Bibi! Awesome job, Bibi Netanyahu, a warrior, an absolute, what a leader. And he knows this country so well. He grew up in New Jersey and the Philadelphia area, actually. Spent a lot of time there, at least. Knows us so well. And you know what? Gosh, I'm sorry, but, when you get attacked, like on 9/11 or on October 7th, right? When they kill women and children, when you have no other choice but to counterattack and wage war, bad things will happen. Bad things will happen. But it's unavoidable. That's why you go to war. I've said it a million times, only as a last resort, right? But you got to go to war sometimes. Bad things happen in war. Bad things happen. Bad things happen no matter what. No matter what. You can build a nice, beautiful bridge that cuts the commute down by 3 hours for everybody. Let's say I built the bridge in Tibet and Mongolia, right? And it cuts the commute down by 3 hours. Sooner or later, somebody's going to jump off that bridge and kill themselves. Does that mean the bridge is bad? No. Right? Build a beautiful building and somebody's going to jump off of it, or, you have a new school and sooner or later some teacher is going to hook up with a kid. That doesn't mean you don't have the school, right? It's like this body camera footage that I'm looking at of the cop who may have wrongly shot that poor woman. You don't cancel the police department because of that bad shooting, right? Oh, actually you do. That's what they want to do. You see what I mean? You got to have the bridge. You got to have the school. We still have to have the cops. And maybe we don't have to see every body camera footage.
Greg Kelly on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, at night, after I get done with all of my media responsibilities, I sometimes peruse the fake news, and I'm going around the dial, and I happen upon CNN, the Abby Phillips show, who's like the secondary it girl. The Caitlin Collins person is the one they seem to revere the most over there, but Abby Phillip has a lot of sway, and I'm watching this discussion, and it's interesting, and I see one of my favorites, the former lieutenant governor of the state of New York, Betsy McCoy, policy expert, academic, and all-around intellectual superstar. And she's running circles around all these people, and they can't stand her for that. I'll get to the clips in a moment. But first, Betsy McCoy, welcome. How are you?
Oh, it's so nice. Thank you for that very generous introduction. I love you.
Well, Betsy, I've seen it before. You are, you've done this for years. You show up, you know your stuff beyond anybody in the media. You ever notice that their grasp is superficial at best, and then they try to come at you, and you just, it's solid. You've written books on this stuff. They can't shut you down, and then they freak out a little bit, right?
Well, and Greg, they're trying to shut down a discussion of the single most dangerous issue in Kamala Harris's toolbox. And we've seen her use it for the last 4 years, but the media do not want you to notice this. And it's called equity. Doesn't that sound nice? It's almost like the word equality, but it isn't. It means putting minorities and women in the front of the line and telling the white men they have to go to the back of the line.
And it was amazing to see you say it out loud. Equity, I know a little bit about this stuff, but the way you put it last night, and explain that to us. Explain how white women benefit potentially and white men don't, and it's all about race. Tell us more about equity.
It's all about race, and interestingly, it came up because the other guests were saying, oh, Kamala Harris, she's going to win because of abortion. She's going to get all these women to vote for her to protect their abortion rights. And I'm saying, well, wait a minute. If these women have brothers or husbands or sons, they're not going to want to throw them under the bus about abortion, because the bigger issue that affects literally everybody in the country is her concept of equity. She says that the government and private employers, virtually every organization, has to push women and minorities, give them advantages, and penalize people who happen to be born white and male. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Biden and Harris, but it's really Biden. She had her fingerprints all over this legislation. They passed a law called the American Rescue Act after COVID. It gave debt relief to farmers. What a nice idea. But only black farmers, white farmers need not apply. Then they had a package of restaurant owner benefits. If you ran a restaurant during COVID, as you know, Greg, you got in a lot of trouble. You were in debt. Maybe you had to close your restaurant because nobody was allowed to go to a restaurant, right? So they had a package of aid for restaurant owners. But once again, women restaurant owners and minority restaurant owners. If you were a white male restaurant owner, you had to go to the back of the line and wait till everybody else applied first to see whether there'd still be money left for you. And then they passed a law. This was called, this one they didn't pass. They tried to pass it, Build Back Better. This was an infrastructure bill. Contractors and subcontractors were going to get priority if they were minorities or women-owned. But white male businessmen running these businesses, even in depressed areas like Appalachia, sorry, you have to just take a walk.
Well, you were laying down that fire last night, and they were really trying to shame you. And this was one of the most interesting things, because you would not be intimidated. And it was a diverse table, and there are a lot of people. The moment race is injected, it will shut them up. Especially, quite frankly, let's be real here. This is the real world. A white woman like you, when they get confronted, often if it's a liberal woman who sometimes happens to be a person of color, there's this illusion that, okay, I'm speaking for all women of color. No, you're speaking for yourself, but the way they were treating you, I thought it was, look, I want to play this clip, all right? This is some of what happened last night. Go ahead.
Okay, you just said, no, that's not what they want. I'm a part of that they. No. And what I'm saying, yes, I am.
You said white women.
No, what I am saying right now is that I believe in equity. And when I say equity, I want everyone to have a fair, level playing field. I do not want
That's not the definition of equity. Take a look at Kamala Harris's 2020 campaign ad.
Let's let Ashley Just because you talk so much doesn't make you right, okay? A conversation is that you listen, you actually hear what somebody says, and then we have a discourse. just talking over someone doesn't make your point any stronger.
All right, stop for a second. All right. Now, number one, this is a cable show. This is you're allowed to interject. This was where I realized, okay, you really got inside. That was so out of bounds for her to say that, because what you were doing was having a conversation. Anyway, you were terrific.
Well, and Abby said, jump in. Don't wait until I ask you a question. She said, jump in. But here's the point. This woman, guest, had not read any of Kamala Harris's works. She's on the record saying she doesn't believe in equality. When the Supreme Court ruled in 2023 that colleges could no longer grant admissions based on race instead of merit, that they had to look at the individual student's merit, not their skin color, Kamala Harris went berserk. She bashed that decision and said, we don't want a colorblind society. We want a society that benefits certain groups and puts them in the front of the line. That is her idea. So I'm just talking to everybody who's thinking about voting in November. You better take into consideration whether you want a society that tells white men to go to the back of the line.
Wow. So you're so on it. Now, I want to continue with this conversation. After she says, don't interrupt me on a cable panel show, which you're supposed to do, quite frankly. Let's pick it up from there, please.
We can say, we know that there are people who are some disadvantaged, some white poor folks who are more disadvantaged than some people who are black middle class. We know that. But what equity is that, and I will just say, white women are the ones who have benefited the most from affirmative action. So maybe you're sitting at this chair because somebody thought you deserved to have an equal playing field.
I don't agree with that.
You don't have to, but the facts are the facts. Like, you don't have to agree with it, but numbers are numbers and facts are facts. And we do know white women benefited more from affirmative action than even Anna, myself, or Abby, or you at this point. Equity is that we want an even playing field. We want everyone to have a fair shot.
That's an incorrect definition.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
So it was amazing. It was amazing. And also because, again, right there, she's trying to shame you because of what you are, what you look like, at least, the color of your skin. And you wouldn't have it. And you had such supreme confidence. And at the same time, courtesy. I noticed you were smiling during the breaks. You wanted to get along with everybody. And so many of them, I think, really resented you because of not only your ideas, but the way you look.
Well, thank you for that. But the fact is that all Americans should be really aware, and the media are not going to help you be aware of what Kamala Harris believes on this issue, because it will be hidden. It is toxic. I noticed that when the Washington Post and Time Magazine this week did big feature stories where Kamala Harris stands on the issues, they omitted race. They didn't say a word about her views on race. And it's because they're so toxic that nobody would vote for her once they know them. And not just white people, Greg. It's insulting to black people to be told you can only get ahead if you're pushed to the front of the line at the beginning. It's insulting.
And you spoke about those folks, the dairy farmers upstate,
yes,
who are excluded from that program. Some of them, most of them happen to be white. And that is, in the federal government's view, a problem. They weren't eligible. It's totally crazy. Do me a favor, text me some of that stuff because, man, oh man, I want the details of what, look, I know she's a lunatic and I despise the concept of equity. Again, you're right. It sounds great, but let me just talk about TV for a second, television. I don't want to complicate your life, by the way. I'd love for you to get invited back to CNN, but after an appearance like that, and you've had them before on cable TV, I've seen them for years. Do they okay, we're not going to invite Betsy back, or do they say that was a great job, please come back tomorrow? What is the outcome for you?
Well, I do that show often, and I'm delighted to do it, and here's why. Because to me, this is a chance to talk to an audience I often don't reach, and to have a kind of challenging discussion. I hope I bring some of the people around the table to my side, or at least bridge the gap so we can smile and shake hands at the end, because these are really important ideas. They can't be swept under the rug. It's not enough, in my view, to laugh at Kamala Harris's laughter, her cackling, or make fun of something else about her, or call her arm candy. Frankly, I don't know her personally. I'd be delighted to have lunch with her. It's the ideas that are at stake here, and that idea, equity, is really dangerous. And I know it's Kamala Harris's because Joe Biden, let's face it, he did not have a sophisticated view on race. He went on that show, Charlemagne the God, and he said, look, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. That's where he stood on race.
Yeah.
She has developed this very sophisticated but pernicious idea that equity is what we want to do. We treat people differently based on their skin color, so they all end up in the same place. To me, that is nauseatingly un-American.
So, man, you're so good. You're so good, and it's so important. Now I have another question for you, if you don't mind, about TV, because look, when I have you on my show and you've been on my show and I have others on, I really just want to hear from them. I've already talked for half the show. I want to see what other people have to say. But sometimes I'm like, maybe if I, push back, it would make for better TV, or it would make you even define your arguments, maybe not you, but others, more effectively. Sometimes people, right. So I'm like, shoot, what should I do here? But I don't want to tick off my audience because, look, I invite guests on that I agree with. And, I guess that's the way it is. I personally don't like the debate. I don't like the, I don't like the shouting. I just, not on my show. I mean, sometimes I'll watch it, but anyway, yeah. So you agree. Sometimes it makes you even better.
It does, but you know what, Greg? You've perfected TV. Don't change it at all.
Thank you so much. Hey, and actually, I do give Abby Phillip a lot of credit for having you on. Sometimes I think that, look, she is very nice, very gracious person. I'm sorry. Yes, but sometimes she seems more opinion than straight journalist. And that's an issue bigger than her over at CNN and MSNBC. What do you call it? Is it straight journalism? Is it opinion TV? Then again, what is journalism these days? It's so subjective, but you are, not subjective. You're objective and you focus on the facts and ideas and you're amazing. Betsy McCoy, the former lieutenant governor of the state of New York. Do you still want to be called lieutenant governor? I noticed they were saying lieutenant governor, lieutenant governor, lieutenant governor. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
I hope you'll call me Betsy.
All right.
Frankly, a lot of times now I'm just called Grammy.
Well, I have no idea. You're ageless and you're terrific. Okay. Betsy McCoy, thank you so much. And we'll be right back.
Greg Kelly on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
You got to check me out on Twitter at Greg Kelly USA or Instagram at Greg Kelly USA. I am doing some tremendous things there. Tremendous. And I like it when the oddball, when somebody agrees, a liberal agrees with me. I put all kinds of things up there, stuff about, politics, of course, ideas, but also just stuff that's going on. Everybody's uptight. You ever notice that nobody says the word uptight anymore? In part because everybody's uptight, right? If everybody's uptight, no one's uptight. What's the other word that's like that? You know what? Betsy McCoy just used it. Berserk. She said they went berserk, when, some controversial policy and, berserk. Nobody uses the word berserk everywhere, in part because everyone's going berserk. So what did I do? I made fun of Norah O'Donnell's clothes. Norah O'Donnell is the Channel 2 evening anchor. And I mean, my God, it's one thing to have nice clothes and to like, the way you look or whatever, but she is obsessed. I can just tell. And these elaborate outfits all over the place, double-breasted pantsuits with the big, huge bell bottoms. I said this. I took a bunch of pictures of her and I said, what the hell is up with Norah O'Donnell and her clothes? She dresses like Katharine Hepburn during her fling with Howard Hughes. It's too much. You can't be a good observer if you're always looking at yourself in the mirror. And she covered up for Joe Biden too, which is the worst of it, really. But, everybody's like, shut up, you're fake news. Shut up, you're a jerk. How dare you? Oh, why are you angry all the time? This is what they're talking about me, right? I don't know what this one guy is always saying. We know you're gay. I mean, I happen to not be, but even if I was, I mean, the world has changed. You know what I mean? That's not even an insult anymore. This is one guy is always saying you're gay. I happen to not be gay, but, I don't know. I think that's a little homophobic, isn't it? And, granted, I know that a lot of guys wouldn't comment on clothes, but, I read GQ when I was growing up. I liked Howard Hughes. I like old movies. And that's exactly what she looks like. Some rich lady in 1938 hanging around a mansion in Hollywood. And then this is the sweet part. Everybody goes nuts. How dare you? They're yelling and screaming. And then this woman, Chloe Valentine, who's from like Women's Wear Daily or something like that, she writes, he has a point, and these are some strange and ill-fitting ensembles. Thank you, Chloe. All right. What does everybody else have to say? Joaquin, hello.
Hey, Greg Kelly. You know, the Israelis have always been attacked by terrorists, the civilians. And if you remember, it was in the 70s, the Israeli flight was hijacked and diverted to Uganda.
Yeah.
And
Raid on Entebbe, right?
Yes. And Bibi Netanyahu's older brother, Jonathan Netanyahu, was the commander that led the raid.
Yeah. He got killed.
And he was the only casualty, yes.
Well, I think one of the hostages died, too.
Okay, that I don't recall.
I think there was a civilian death, an older woman. But it is amazing. It's in his blood. Rescuing and defending Israel is in his blood. And I love that. Yeah, Jonathan Netanyahu. These guys are champions. The raid on Entebbe. Who was that guy again who ran Uganda? Idi Amin. Remember him?
Yep.
He was crazy. But he was very colorful, too, with those, uniforms and everything and his lifestyle. There's a movie that you may want to watch. It's called Last King of Scotland. Last King of Scotland. And that was one of his titles, by the way. I don't know. He was crazy. And it's about Idi Amin and some doctor from, some doctor who becomes friends with him. All right. Thank you, Joaquin. Let's see here. Marianne, hello.
Hi, Greg. How are you doing?
Good. What's up?
I was wondering if you noticed the body language of the two people behind Trump when he got shot. The woman with the white blouse, the black hat, and the sunglasses, and the man, if you're watching TV, the man is on your left. The man, he's got a white shirt on, and he's built pretty solid. Their body language doesn't match the rest of the crowd. I feel as though they are tied in with the shooting.
Well, let's not jump to conclusions. I've seen the footage. I've watched it a million times. When the bullets start flying, people react differently. They do. Having been in situations where bullets have flown, people react differently. Some people don't even know what's going on. Some people do. Some people get really scared. Some people don't. There's a lot of confusion. So I've been looking at it. I've been reluctant to say anything along those lines. I am very open-minded on the issue. I've been studying it. You got to remember, people are different. Trump yesterday was talking about the guy with the green hat. It was great. The big thing, the big headline for me, they didn't panic. They didn't run away. That was amazing. So, Marianne, I'm still looking at it, all right? I do believe that this, the government negligence was deliberate, all right? The government negligence was deliberate. I think that's a fake news item or fake rumor about the woman being in the FBI. Nobody has really established that to my satisfaction. But, Marianne, it is so worthy of our obsession, to be honest. We've got to stay on this. Because you saw Christopher Wray yesterday. I don't think he's that committed, do you? You're the best, Marianne. Thank you. Jay, hello.
Hey, Greg, hey, I love your show. Just want to share with you sharing an assassination attempt or an assassination with a very young child. It happened to me on a black and white TV, watching my mom, and watching JFK get shot time after time after time because they kept replaying it. And, it was a big deal. But JFK, like Ronald Reagan and like Trump, they're similar in their anti-swamp,
Anti-swamp. Hey, one thing, we our memories change. They couldn't replay the assassination of Kennedy because it wasn't really on video. Remember, the Zapruder film came out much later. Maybe you're thinking of the assassination of Oswald, because that was live and everybody was watching the TV, and that they could replay. you know.